here in Kansas, I think one of the biggest threats that we will ever face when it comes to Earth Day and our environment is the shortage of water. And so helping children understand how important water is to us, helping people understand the value of these things and how important they are to us. Without that water, we're not producing the grain that feeds the people across the planet. And so I think that one of the coolest lessons we can teach our young children is really about the intertwining of all of these things, right? That nature itself, again, we're not separate, we're part of. And so what we do in one area affects what we do in other areas, and it all affects us.
Children benefit both physically and mentally from spending time outdoors with parents and other children. A Kansas State University child development specialist explains how adults can help kids learn about the environment around them and ways to protect the environment on today's Sound Living, using the outdoors as a springboard to learning. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles says that being outdoors provides children with a variety of ways to play, learn, and engage with others. Bradford, as we move into spring and also start thinking about Earth Day as well, an opportunity to kind of look at several things today. First off, what can we teach kids about just being out in nature? And then maybe some recycling, things like that, and some gardening. So a lot that goes on in the springtime because the weather allows it.
Yeah, I love this time of year for multiple different reasons, but certainly the ability to come back outside and spend time outside among nature. And I want to be really clear, nature is not separate from us. We are part of it. It is part of us. You can engage in the outdoor environment no matter where you are. If you're in a city, that doesn't mean that you are separated from nature. It's all part of us. So you get a chance to be out. You have a chance to teach and learn about your outdoor environment. And then, as Earth Day approaches, and we think about conservation and things that we can do. There's just all kinds of really cool activities and opportunities to support our children's development in a conscientious and forward-looking way.
Talk a little bit about what kids can learn from being outside. I know there are just, all sorts of things you can do. One of the things that's actually kind of fun is to go on a scavenger hunt. You're trying to identify things and almost turn it into like a game of bingo or something like that. But it's really a combination of having fun, but also maybe a little bit of education thrown in.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I always talk with parents about, particularly with younger children, is they know more about any of the things that they see than their young children do. So, for example, you know more about a tree and the system that goes on in making a tree and keeping a tree than a child could possibly, right? You understand that the bark protects it. You understand that it turns the sun's energy into nutrients and energy, right? So you understand that it's got a root system and that it somehow has seeds, whether they're cones or some other way of creating more trees. Young children don't know these things. And so you don't have to be an expert arborist to be able to say these things, to talk through these things. So recognize that you have expertise beyond their developmental level. And then also, you talked a little bit about gamifying things. And I love this approach. I will caution just a little. If you have siblings, sometimes they can get a little competitive. So having them work together as a team is really helpful. But so much of parenting is being intentional about what it is you're going to do. So if you know you're going to go outside, spend just a minute or less thinking about what you want to do while you're out there and how you can set up activities. If it's a bingo card or if it's a list of things that it's a simple list. Like, okay, let's find an earthworm. Where would we find an earthworm? Well, if there's a garden, chances are you could dig in your garden, find one. You're probably not going to go try to dig in the concrete. So thinking through those things, right? Like, okay, where's the most likely place? Now, sometimes it's dry and the earthworms aren't on top and you give it a shot and it's not there. Well, that's okay. Chalk it up to experience and keep going, right? It's not a make or break. One of my favorite things is to try to find different kinds of leaves. And if you don't know what the leaf is, that's okay. There are plenty of apps for that, as well as you can just take a picture of the leaf and, use Google to see what kind of leaf that is. It's really easy. In Kansas, we have several different varieties of trees, but at the end of the day, you're limited to about 10 main types of trees you're going to get, right? You're going to get some oaks, you're going to get cottonwood, Osage trees, the maple trees, sycamore, and, that's and a few other varieties. Again, I'm not an arborist. But the point is, you have a solid foundation there that you can teach and learn with, and then you can drill down. So one of the ways that we think about child development is really developmentally appropriate practice. So what is appropriate for them to be able to learn without making it so hard that they turn off, but so easy that they're like, well, duh, right? So things like being able to, it's been years, but you can put a piece of paper over a leaf and make an etching of it, right? So that can be really fun for kids to be able to see the different parts of the leaf come through, the veins and the spines and all those things. So, that's just one example. And that just has to do with trees. But you can look at what kind of plants there are, what kind of songs that you hear from birds, right? Or, how many different birds do you see or hear? So the world's out there for you. And children are very curious about it. One of the things that you can do in all of those things is talk through what happens if we don't treat our planet well, right? So when we don't treat our planet well, those birds aren't here. They've gone further north because they can't handle being nearer the equator. They can't find things to eat, so they die. And it's one of the things I talk with my own children and others about is, hey, take care of these things because you miss them when they're not there. We don't want to make Earth Day something that's sad. What we want to do is provide them with hope and express the opportunity for them to contribute.
That's really part of it, is the fact that they have a chance to do a small part that helps a larger part, picking up things they see on the side of the road, going out and collecting trash and taking it to the place it's supposed to go instead of the ditch. So there are things that they can do, and that's always nice when they feel like they're helping.
Absolutely. So for years now, I have made it a policy to pick up at least 3 pieces of trash whenever I go outside. So wherever I am, whether it's in my own yard, which, yes, sometimes there are pieces of trash in my yard. The wind blows in Kansas. But I make it a point to always bring 3 pieces back. Now, if there are more and they're easily accessible and it's not a hassle, of course I'll grab more. But really just sort of implementing that policy of, hey, we're gonna clean up. Organizing a bunch of children to do that is a lot of fun. So they have fun. How often do you get to tell kids to go play in garbage? Not very often because, of course, you don't want to do that. But if you do it as part of a cleanup, it's great fun for them. And, obviously you want to be safe with it. But at the end of the day, it's fun to do. And it gives them that sense of purpose and recognizing that they're cleaning up. And then, you talked about recycling. And certainly there are opportunities for that. If you don't have recycling at your home garbage service, there are multiple different collection places across the state in different communities. If you're proximal to Manhattan, you can always take it to K-State Recycling. But a part of that I do want to emphasize is that at the consumer level, yes, we have a role to play. When it comes to these plastics and other products, really the issue there is not with consumers. Those are with producers, right? Those are the people who make plastics. We as consumers can only purchase those things that are really available and in front of us, and we can do the best we can with them. But if we want to talk about future action, one of the things that we can instill in our kids and model for them is really engaging in some of the political activity of reducing the production of plastics and other solid waste that doesn't biodegrade.
I think one of the things I'm starting to see is the fact that some of the younger kids actually know more about some of these things than we do because they're growing up with it. They understand it. We had to kind of learn it secondhand. They're learning it firsthand.
They are indeed. And as I get older, I'm coming to realize that the younger generation just knows more than I do about their generation, and I have to be okay with that. Now, that's not to say they know it all yet, because I am not young enough to know it all, but I can say that it is really interesting that they have a stronger concept of things like solar energy and wind energy production than I did at their age. Those things were technologies that were sort of, pipe dreams at that point.
Beyond that, another thing that we might think about if we don't have an opportunity to go outside, it has to be one of those rainy days and you had something planned, we can always turn to books and educational videos and things like that because some of those are done very well, and there's a lot of different things that you can find on YouTube now that are not terribly long. If the kids don't have that long attention span, you don't have to watch a 2-hour movie. Maybe you can watch a 7-minute video.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are really cool videos with different experiments. So like we talked a little bit about trees and how they convert sunlight into energy that they can use. There are great videos about photosynthesis and how that works. And there are really cool videos about conserving energy. And again, age appropriate. So it doesn't have to be this, chemical change at the microbiological level. Like that's not appropriate for a 6-year-old. But they have really good videos that can give an overview of why conservation is important, what global warming means. I recognize that there's still this, I hate to call it a debate, but there's this difference of viewpoint about why global warming is occurring. What I will say about that is I don't care. I just know that the solution lies in us making sure that we use renewable fuels. It's not only just good for our planet, it's just good policy. And then beyond that, helping children understand like all the cool things that we just take for granted about how things work, about how our own bodies work. Like, part of Earth Day is what we put in, right? So you talked about gardening. What we grow is what we put in our bodies. And so understanding the threats of, growing things that are not as healthy for us as others. Here in Kansas, I think one of the biggest threats that we will ever face when it comes to Earth Day and our environment is the shortage of water. And so helping children understand how important water is to us. Here in eastern Kansas, we take it a little bit more for granted. But, we still have drought, of course. But in western Kansas, they are in the midst of having to really regulate water rights and negotiate things that are extraordinarily tough. And so helping people understand the value of these things and how important they are to us, and not just us individually, but our society as a whole, right? Without that water, we're not producing the grain that feeds the people across the planet. And so I think that one of the coolest lessons we can teach our young children is really about the intertwining of all of these things, right? That nature itself, again, we're not separate, we're part of, is a whole. And so what we do in one area affects what we do in other areas, and it all affects us.
And the good thing here is the fact that we're doing this all together, so we're engaging as a family, and that's the concept that really probably goes the farthest, is just that connectedness to family.
Yeah, absolutely. These are great opportunities to have fun, to talk through serious things in a safe and cool way while you're learning some things. And again, we don't want to make it all doom and gloom, right? It's not that. These are things we can do, right? Nothing is written in stone here. We can make change. We can, to coin a phrase, be the change we want to see in the world. And so that time together is just the most valuable. I've been on your show for many, many times now, and it's always about that, about using these things as reasons to teach and learn with and from your kids. Because you will learn things from your kids, always. You're an expert in some things, but they'll tell you what they're thinking and how they're thinking about things. And it can really help you understand not only your child more, which is always valuable information, but also what they need to really advance and be able to make those changes and be advocates for the things that we know are going to be really important as they grow.
That's K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles. For more information on child development, contact your local county or district extension office or visit the extension website, ksre.ksu.edu. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.